सर्वेपि सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all experience auspiciousness and wealth, may none suffer from grief and sorrow. Myself, Dr. Sirisagar Lakshman Arun, the Head Department of English, Arihant College of Arts, Commerce and Science, Camp Pune. Good morning, friends. Today we are going to discuss, we are going to learn, we are going to think, and we are going to understand the poems All the World's a Stage. All the World's a Stage by William Shakespeare. Friends, we're going to talk about the titles and the poems. The overview of my all lectures. The first I will introduce about the writers, a brief introduction about William Shakespeare. Then I will discuss about the titles and the poem. Then I will read the poem line by lines. Then I explained stage wise and summary of the poems. And last I will conclude. The friends, William Shakespeare was an English poet, playwright and actor, widely regarded as both the greatest writer in the English language and the world's preeminent dramatist. He is often called English national poet and the bard of Avon. So famous poet, dramatist, milestone in English literatures. The the title of the poems, All Words a Stage. Very philosophical and realistic titles. Through this poem, the Shakespeare wanted to teach us, wanted to suggest us that all words are the stage and merely men and women are the actors and actresses, and they have come on the earth, not come, but sent by the God and the nature on the earth to play their roles. We are playing our roles. He divides the human role in 7 stages, in 7 parts. Friends, when we think about the literatures, number of the philosophers and the thinkers and theorists define literature in their own way. Some philosophers and writers say literature is the mirror of the society. Another remarks literature is the reflection of the society. And some philosopher defines literature reconstruct and remodify and redefine the society. But I would like to say, I say literature guides all the human beings how to lead a holistic, peaceful and contented life. I repeat it, literature guides all the human beings how to lead a holistic, peaceful and contented lives. Good literatures, moral literature, ethical literatures. So friends, yes, all the words is the stage and we are the actors and actresses, but our role should be ideal. We should play the ideal, immortal and permanent role. That should be memorable. When we see in the world that such persons, a dramatist and the sant and the sages and social reformers and the kings have been played their immortal roles. In the Sant Ganeshwars, when it thinks and talk about the Indian sants, numbers of the pilgrimages, marchings and towards their death anniversary and the birth anniversary is going to celebrated by the peoples. The same scene when we think is the Maharashtrians level, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, over all the worlds. We are Ambedkar. Means they played their ideal roles. When we read I would like to suggest, read the autobiography of APJ Abdul Kalam, Mahatma Gandhi, We will come to know that. But according to the sages and the santas and the philosopher like the William Shakespeare, to celebrating our own birth date and all like that, it is a childish and foolish and nonsense tasks, nonsense way. Because our birthday, our date anniversary must be or should be celebrated by the others. It should be immortals, like such persons, which already I mentioned. And while performing our roles, we must be play the roles, or our role should be, or it would have ideal roles. For that playing that roles, I think if when we come across the Indian sages and the Sant literatures, we get the guidance. There is one quote in Hindi. The quote is that जननी जने सो संत जने या दाता या शूर नहीं तो जननी वांझ भली क्या खोएगा नूर. If mother gives birth, she should be give the birth to a sant and sages or a brave person or donatables. Otherwise, if she is not giving birth, she is not able to give the birth, it will not harm to the world. Things and another, but nowadays her friends, we are after the monies and the money and fame and all that worldly pleasures, but money and the wealth is like the mirage. The body also. Nowadays we are attracted toward the bodies. So, according to philosopher, according to Sant Tukaram, wealth and the body is like a mirage. It's going to perish, and it is the same taught and discussed in these poems all the world stage. Because we were the kids then now, but body is turned from one step to the another step, and body is nothing. It's a mixture of the bone and blood and the flesh, but we are attracted towards that. And when we think about that, only we need, why then we are after the worldly pleasures and the money and all that? In the stanza numbers 4th and 5th, he is going to talking about that. And D.S. Lawrence also talk about in his poems philosophical money madness. Why the peoples come out of the tracks, they bribes, they follow the path of the untruths. Because Satya Pradana hi dharma satyate chi parbrahma satya pashishwara sarvakala tishtatasi. There is no great religion than truth. Religion is the truth. There is no better great religion than the truth. Divinity, you are attains on the truths. And truth is the God. Truth is the God. Satya Pradana hi dharma. Truth is the God. But we follow the path of the false from our momentary pleasures for our jobs and all that. That is a different part. But if you wanted to such types of the roles, if you wanted to play, if you wanted to our role and our act should be immortals, then we must be follow that types of the teaching, that truthness and all of that. We must be minimizes our the vices and inculcate and close, increase our virtues. It is very important. Anyway, lastly, I am also going to minimizing conclusions, and also we are also going to learn some, one of the great thoughts. Anyway, now I read the poems. I start the poem stage by stage. Stage first. All the world's a stage, and men and women merely flaws. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 stages. At first the infant, mewling and fucking in the nurse's arm. I repeat it. All the world's a stage, and all men and women merely flaws. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 stages. At first, the infant, mewling and poking in the nurse's arms. Shakespeare wanted that we enter in and exit this verse, but it is not in our hands. No, when we enter this verse, it is not where and when to enter, and where to exist. It is not in our hand, it is in God's hand, it is in nature's hand. It is in nature's hand. Otherwise, all the persons maybe get born in the virtuous and the rich family, but it is not in our hands. It is decided by our deeds and the karma. Okay, anyway, now the summary of the stage number first. In the poem Seven Ages of Man, Shakespeare compares the entire world to a theatrical stage where all the human beings perform their allotted role given by the god. Every individual has to go through 7 acts that are 7 stages of man's life. The first stage, in this phase of his life, man appears as a child in the world. As a child, he is a helpless creature. He cries in the arms of his nurse for one reason or the other. He cries and vomits. Stage number second or third. I read. Then the weaning schoolboy, with his scratches and shining morning face, creeping like snail, unwilling to school, and then the lover, soaring like furnace with the awful ballad made to his mistresses I bought. Explanation of it. Stage number 2 or 3. The next phase of his life, man appears as a child in the world. He goes to school with a bag hanging from his shoulder. He is not interested to go to the school. He goes to the school creeping like a snail. He marches to the school unwillingly. In the third stage of his life, a man plays the part of a lover. He grows into a young man full of desires, ambitions and dreams. He becomes a romantic young man. He falls in love and sighs like a furnace. He begins to write sad poems to his beloved. He cannot control his sad feelings and his emotions. Stanza number 4, stage number 4. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and beauty like the fart, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputations evil in the cannon's mouth. Summary. In the fourth stage of his life, man becomes a full mounted soldier who has learned quick words at his stage. He tries to give himself a formidable look with a bird-like part. He is emotional and jealous. He quarrels with others for his honor and grace. He hankers after temporary and bubble fames. Then, stage number 5. The man becomes the justice handler. And then judge. And then the justice. In fair round belly with good caffeine light, with eyes save and beard of formal cut, for full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. I repeat it. And then the justice in fair round belly with good caffeine light, with eyes saved and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so plays his part. Summary of 5th numbers. In the 5th stage of his life, he becomes a judge. He becomes the mature and explained in his thoughts. The heat of which has completely cooled down and becomes very realistic. He wishes to grab wealth by foul or fair means. He begins to accept bribe and thus adds much to these material comforts. He accepts bribes. Now, bribe and the corruption, each in every field of life, every branches. It may be also entered in the educations in 21st century. That's why we are facing and such types of the coronas is attacking to the all human beings throughout the world. Yes, he begins to accept bribe and thus adds much to his material comforts. He is loving and therefore becomes fat. His belly becomes round. He eats healthy foods presented to him as a bribe. His eyes, modern man's eyes, becomes severed and grows the beard of formal cut. Stage number 6. The sixth age slips into the linen slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hoods, well saved a world too wide for his shrunk shank and his big manly voice. Turning again toward child's table, pipes and vestal in his sound. Summary of stage number 6. Then in the sixth stage of his life, man grows old. He looks quite ridiculous in his moments. He wears glasses because his eyesight is weak. His shoes become wide for his feet. His voice suffering a change. It becomes shrill and quivering whispers. And the last stage of men and women actors is last scene of all that ends this strong eventful history. Is second childless and mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. I repeat it, last scene of all that ends this strong eventful history. All the events. Its second childless and mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans size, sans taste, sans everything. Summary of this stage, last stage. However, in the final stage, the man turns into the child. Once again, he seems to forget everything. He lost his memory, lost mind. And if he is not done the good deeds, then he repents. He cries. He is not able to save her from the suffering and the sorrow. He seems to forget everything. He becomes toothless. His eyesight is weakened, and he is deprived of taste. He is ready to leave this world. That's why he cries, "Oh God, let me live. Let me take with you." The friends, Shakespeare has the 7 stages of man's life with a touch of satire and cynicism. In each stage, man imagines himself great and important, but there is something ridiculous in his behavior, all through his lives. It means imagine himself great and important, but there is something ridiculous in his behavior all through his lives. Shakespeare has described each of the man's life stage with a great economy of words. He uses living and concrete images to describe the different stages of life. The use of the word mulling of the infant's cry and the school boy's reluctance for going to the school described in phrases: creeping like a snail, snail, an example of the living images. And lastly, conclusions. Before going to conclude, now, when we read all these poems, we come to know that Shakespeare has divided humans' lifespan into 7 stages. But the questions arise in our mind. Then why we are not able to memorize and also recalls our ancestors' name and fames? Why we are failed to play the roles of immortal and like the heroes, which will become immortal, permanent, and the ideals? Shakespeare only defined the stages, but when we read the Indian sant and sages literatures, they further teach us. I remember one of the Abhanga of Sant Tukaram Maharaj, Maharashtrian Sant. Sant Tukaram Maharaj also discusses the ethical codes which helps to the entire human being of the world. Sant Tukaram Maharaj described the vices which were common in his day at Diu and in other villages. Now, due to the globalization, the vices are found 90% in the human being, in modern man. Sant Tukaram Maharaj listed the various vices that must be strive for it. One is to attain a high moral standard and want to live happy, satisfied, and contented and peaceful life in day-to-day life. The human must follow these principles, rules and regulations and ethical codes. we do not follow the regulations and rules and the principles and ethical codes, our life become meaningless, purposeless, aimless, goalless. The rest, we only mingles in the eating, drinking, sleeping, and copulation like the animal, nothing beyond that. Because being a humans, having the mind, we must be learn such types of the things and apply in our lives. Sant Ganeshwar also said, Phedita papatap, pokhita tiriche padap, samudra jaya pagange chetai. They say, when we think about the river emerges, that was the very short stream, but its goals and mission to mingle and restore the oceans and sea. But while flowing through his life journey, it is useful for all the humankind. The farmers, industrialization, civilization, man's using their waters, and it gives, spreads, and ultimately got his missions and goal. In the same way, our life should be like that. I read that, or I chant that quotes, that Abhanga of Sant Tukaram. Very important. If you apply in practical day-to-day lives, we can become happy. There is no need to get the tensions and the pressures and the worries and all that sorrows. We can lose the sufferingless and sorrowless life. We can become happy, immortal happy. I chant, by looking upon another wife as your mother, do you lose any money? By looking upon another wife as your mother, do you lose any money? By not speaking ill of others, by not coveting the wealth of others, say, do you lose anything? In repeating Ram, Ram as Ram is the names of God. In different religions, we use the different names. Some, in the Christians, we say Jesus, Allah. They both all are the same. All religions are the same. They only teach us that world is a family. Okay, anyway. But here Sant Tukaram says, by not speaking ill of others, by not coveting the wealth of others, say, do you lose anything? In repeating Ram, Ram as you are seated, what is the exertion? Will you tell me? Is exertion necessary to tell the truth? Have you to lose anything? Is exertion necessary to tell the truth? Have you to lose anything? Friends, it is very difficult tasks to tell the truth and to apply the truthness in practical life. So therefore he says, is exertion necessary to tell the truth? Have you to lose anything? It is through this that God is attained. And if you apply for all that principles, all that ethical codes which he mentions, it is through this that God is attained. No other trouble need be taken. No other trouble need be taken. There is no need to go to the mosque, go to the churches, go to the temples and spend hours and hours praying and meditations. If you follow all these principles, all these regulations in practical life, in day-to-day, we can become the happy. We can live the happily in our lives, in day-to-day lives. And these thoughts and these all the ideals, principles and wishes must become in our practical life. Okay, I conclude. Shakespeare wanted to render a message through his poem all the world's stage that man and woman are merely players in the drama of life. They are termed as merely players because none one lives forever but plays his or her part and departs. As birth, they enter a stage, and during death, they leave it. Man passes through 7 phases of life in accordance with their age. Friends, we discuss of all that things, and we learn a lot of things from the William Shakespeare's all versus stage. As a behalf of all, I pray to the God, I pray to the Almighty, all these virtues must be entered in our practical lives. So thank you for watching my YouTube channels, and if you like, subscribe my channel. Thank you. Thank you very much.